So for step number 2, we're going to be putting this Unifying Glaze onto his beak now. I'm using the 273, which is a mid-grey, and it's warmer than the 233. We're just going to start to add this on top of those colours which are underneath. This is going to make the beak look quite flat because we're going to add more tonal structure to it once this has been put down. So you can probably hear that I'm sort of brushing the pencil across the page, and I'm holding the pencil not like you'd hold a writing pen, but further towards the end of the pencil. Obviously this pencil is also quite short now, but so that I can produce a flatter edge. But because I have sharpened the pencil, I've got greater accuracy than using the whole flat if I was to hold the pencil, how I was for the first stage with the green. So I tend to work in two halves so that I don't lose the definition between the upper and the lower beak, but with the Gannet it's quite easy to see that because they've got this lovely patterning going on. So I'm still not pressing too hard, but the pastel paper, because I'm using the paper as opposed to the board, has less of a tooth, I find, and so it's easier to fill in the tooth or the grain of the card as you go. There are still bits of green which are showing through, and I'm going to add a little bit more now we've got this layer on as well. But before I do that, let's just address these edges here. So the edges between the black or the dark grey and this mid-grey, I want to soften them just a little bit. So I'm doing that by just bringing this pencil up to the edge of the darker marks. I'll then go back in and re-establish the dark marks. This is just so that the whole beak sits together as one form, instead of it looking like lots of little separate pieces and a paint by numbers. It's often these little details that will really progress your work. So that is it after its first layer of the 273. So I'm now going to pick up that dark grey again, which is the 181. I'm just going to go back in, and where it's needed, establish these darks. This pencil is still fairly sharp, so I'm not getting some great thick line down. I keep looking at my reference photo as I work. Okay, so now that that is in, I'm going to go back with this green that we were using in the first step. I'm just going to glaze back over the top really lightly of the beak. So if you were to look at this, you wouldn't look at it and think it's green, but what we want over the whole painting are lots of small interactions of different colours. It will make the painting much more livelier. So this is the 160 again, which is that purple colour. So I'm just going to add a little bit more purple down into the tip of the beak. So the colours going on in this at the minute are really quite subtle, but that's what you want. Into this, we're going to bring our highlights. So I'm going to start off with the cold light grey. If you've just got one light grey, don't worry about it. That goes for all of the greys in this. I'm just showing you what I like to use. So the colder of the greys is the 230. And I'm going to put this on the highlights which are coming from the sky. Which obviously the sky is, on a nice sunny day anyway, is nice and blue. As we start to put these in, the beak begins to become rounded, which is what we want. So it's taking it from a flat motif into something dimensional. So just keep looking at your reference photo. Your photo might be different to mine, the way that the light is falling on the beak. generally speaking, you're going to want some sort of highlight on top of the beak. And you want to keep thinking about the fact that, although not entirely, the beak is quite smooth. So I'm being really careful with my pencil marks here. And as the pencil is touching the page, it's already moving, and then I'm sweeping it back off again. And this just means that all of the pencil marks can run into each other and create a nice continuous and smooth shape. You can also see that by doing that, I don't have to worry about blending it into the layers underneath. So another good reason on this painting for starting with the beak is that obviously birds' eyes are very small, and although we have got the tonal range from black to white with a highlight in here, we've also got a similar range going on here because we've got the black, we've got a lot of mid-tone, and then we've got some highlights. So it's still a good place to start for your painting. By starting with black and with some of your lightest lights, it means it's much easier to balance the rest of your painting as you go on. You can almost think of these layers like a glaze. They're very, very light. We're just building up the whole painting in lots of light layers. So if you have a warmer light grey, which is the 270, then he's just catching a small amount of reflection off his own chest here, and his feathers are a warmer colour. So I'm just popping that in the 270. It's a very, very slight difference. Okay, so that is step number 2.